Apparently, we are now on the verge of another subprime mortgage crisis. According to the Wall Street Journal, consumers with low credit scores are falling behind on payments for car loans, personal loans, and credit cards. Who could have predicted that this sort of thing would have happened? I mean, it's not like this just happened in 2007, 2008, well within living memory of all human adults.
All right, so the Wall Street Journal just put out an article talking about the car market bubble and that it officially had popped. So what exactly is the car market bubble? How did we get there? How did all of this happen? How did we possibly get stuck in this situation? And if you're looking to buy like a Hellcat or some new sports car right now, I strongly suggest holding off on it because they're about to get drastically cheaper, like a dime a dozen. So what started all of this? How did this get going? Oh, there was a couple of different factors. The really big one is the dealers selling above MSRP. Because MSRP isn't just some random number pulled out of the air. No, the car manufacturers, they have board meetings, they talk about different prices, they find the exact price where the car is going to be competitive compared to the market, compared to other cars, and that's the max they want their car sold for, you know, give or take a little bit, because that's where it will be competitive. If you take a car with, you know, let's say it's got an MSRP of $30,000, you put another $10,000 on top of it, comparing that car against other $40,000 cars, it's not fair. It's not a competition. Their car is not fit for that market. It's marked at $40,000 or $30,000 for a very specific reason, because that's what the features, that's what it offers, that's where it's competitive. Well, they're not the only ones that have a problem with high MSRPs. Lenders also have a problem with high MSRPs, because that's how they value the car. Like when they're looking at a loan, they'll take the MSRP and then they apply a formula to it. Basically, the formula goes a little something like this. If the car has been owned and it's 1 year old, now we're going to pretend that the car is wrapped in saran wrap, it's put in a garage, it's never had a single mile put on it. All you did was sign the title over to your name, so it is now officially pre-owned. After the first year, it drops by 20% in value. After 5 years, the car has dropped by 60%. That means, let's say the car originally sold for $60,000, or we'll make it $100,000 so the math is super easy. The car originally sold for $100,000. You bought it. You signed the title over. You wrapped that bad boy in bubble wrap. You had it trailered to your house. You put it in the garage so the odometer still reads 0. It is now only worth $40,000. Now, obviously, there is the classic car market and collectibles, but that doesn't kick in until like 20 years, 25 years. That's when the value starts going back up, but it drops the whole entire time. Now, that's with 0 mileage. You start putting mileage, damage on it, stuff like that, it drops much more significantly. If you've been living under a rock, you don't know this, but yeah, the used car market has not been doing that, especially with primo cars. High trim cars have been just going like crazy. They have not been following this rule. And the reason they've been able to sell it not following that rule is because there's been a whole bunch of lenders giving out subprime loans. What a subprime loan is they look at your credit score, all that good stuff, and they're like, is he likely to pay this back or not? If they come up with the answer no, you would be a subprime and or high risk person to borrow to. They've been giving out loans for that. So these people have been going in and they've been buying it. So what is the problem with selling above MSRP or selling a used car and not following this rule? Negative equity. So if you buy a car that has an MSRP of $100,000, brand new, and they put an extra $10,000 or $20,000 on top of that, just by signing that paper, you owe $10,000 to $20,000 more than that car is even worth. That's not counting the interest that's going to go on top of it and all the other factors. So that car has a pile of negative equity attached on it. And we'll get into how that's going to affect all of this a little bit later. So, the next thing that has caused this bubble to happen is artificial income. Because of the stimulus checks, child care coming in, all that extra money that doesn't exist coming in, it has inflated people's income artificially and temporarily, same with minimum wage going up, that they think they can afford more than they can actually afford. I had somebody break it down to me like this, so I'm going to break it down to you like that. So what is the difference between this piece of paper, and this piece of paper? Not a damn thing. None of these have any value whatsoever. This is called fiat money. What that means is not real. The only reason this has value is because you believe it has value. If you believe this piece of paper had value, it would have just as much value as this. So, to get away from bartering and carrying around heavy gold coins, they came up with this. It's lighter, it's small, it can fold, it can fit in a small place. You can put different denominations on here like 100, 50, 20, 10. All in all though, it's still just a piece of paper. However, we had to get rid of the barter system. So what this turned into was a work voucher. So I'm going to pretend like I make $1 an hour. If I do 1 hour's worth of work, whether that's flipping burgers, open heart surgery, the point is, this just stands for that amount of work I did. So now we value the different amounts of work at different amounts, because you wouldn't give somebody a cow for flipping a burger for 1 hour, but you would most certainly give somebody a cow for open heart surgery. And that's where minimum wage comes in the different wage scales. This way you can be credited accordingly to the job you're doing. So let's pretend that I make $1 an hour. I've done X. We'll say it's flipping burgers. I flip burgers for 1 hour. That means I get $1. This credits the work I did. So let's pretend that I'm going to raise my wage to $2 an hour. I haven't flipped more burgers, therefore I haven't produced more, but now I have $2. So everything else needs to go up accordingly, because otherwise I'll get more out than I put work in. Because you have to put in the same amount of work as you want to get back, otherwise you're going to run into supply shortages, hyperinflation, and then the problem corrects itself, which is what we're facing right now. Regardless what this is, whether it's $100, $200, or $1 million, this only credits for the work I did. So if I double the minimum wage, I haven't doubled the amount of money I'm making, I just split my work into $2. It's more valuable as one because this represents more work. Now, when they just give out free money, like stimulus checks, well, it can't come out of here because my minimum wage hasn't went up. It can't come out of this dollar because if minimum wage goes up, then you just split your work between $2. You're still going to buy the same amount of work from other people. It's just going to be holding more cash. So it really makes no difference if minimum wage goes up. Now, when you put in fake money, like stimulus money, well, it can't come out of this because there's nothing to take out of it. I haven't put in any extra work. So what it does is it comes out of other people's money. The money that's in savings accounts, the money that's not being used, the money that's saved away. And it does that by inflation. So now I have $2, but I'm still only going to be able to buy the same amount. It just takes a little bit of time for the economy to catch up. So with the artificial money, minimum wage going up and that, it bumped everybody so they think they're at a higher pay scale. They're not. It just takes a minute for everything else to come up to the right price because you're still putting in the same amount of work. And if you're not putting in any work, well, now it's really taken out of somebody else's savings account. It's got to go somewhere because you're not producing a product for people to buy. You're only consuming. If you're only consuming, someone else has to pay for your consumption. Again, that's where inflation would kick in. It would just make things more expensive. This way it all equals out. Minimum wage will always be minimum wage regardless what dollar amount it's paid for because everything will just cost more. Or they'll eliminate the job altogether and bring a robot in, like what McDonald's did. So anyway, people got all this artificial money, they paid off debt, they brought their credit score up, they started buying things. In this case, we're talking about luxury cars. More specifically, high-trim cars that they normally wouldn't have been able to afford. Like Hellcats, Shelby Cobras, Lexuses, stuff like that. Like really high-trim cars that they have no business owning because they didn't put in the amount of work to get it in the first place. So, that drove up the MSRP, that drove up the used car market. Well, now they can't pay for it because they bought it at like $1 a gallon. Now, food costs more, rent costs more, insurance costs more, gas costs more. Because remember, they're still making the same amount of work. They're not making more money because it's not money. It's a work voucher. They're still putting in the same amount of work. So they couldn't afford it before. Their pay got artificially inflated. Now inflation has caught up with their pay and they're starting to default on their loans. And the Wall Street Journal reported on this like crazy. Like, people are just left and right no longer paying for loans. So hyperinflation fixed the artificial income like it would. It always does. You raise minimum wage, inflation goes up. You give people stimulus checks, inflation goes up. Because the supply and demand always equals out. If there's a higher demand, the price goes up. When people are no longer buying, the price goes down. You're just worried about the serious drops or the serious raises. That's when it's a problem. The normal ups and downs, that's all good. Alright, so the next thing, which I was touching on a little bit earlier, is 99 cents per gallon. People bought these luxury cars, these high gas consuming cars, at 99 cents a gallon. And they could afford it then. Inflation hadn't caught up yet. There was cheap gas. Everything was on the up and up. They were able to afford it. Well, now they can't. Every time gas goes up by even a penny, there's going to be a couple more people that default on their loan. A couple more people that default on their loan. Food prices go up. Going to be a couple more people that default on their loan. The reason the gas prices went up, it was because of the EV push. They're pushing for EVs, like this senator says right here.
Final example of our stupid energy politics. Last fall, this grandstanding California congressman scolded oil executives.
Are you embarrassed as an American company that your production is going up?
They produce too much oil, he said.
Would you commit to reducing production of oil?
We're committing to lowering our emissions.
No, are you committed to lowering the production?
We're going to lower emissions, which is the source.
Okay, I'll take that as a no.
Now, I don't remember exactly what senator quoted it. It was back when it was 99 cents a gallon, and for the life of me, I can't find the quote. But he quoted it was something like gas needs to be at least $4 a gallon for EVs to become feasible. And I'll break down the math. All right, so for a kilowatt hour, you can typically drive 3, maybe 4 miles on an EV. That's charging it for, and it costs you 1 kilowatt hour, which depending on where you live can cost anywhere from 10 to 20 cents a kilowatt hour. Here in Wisconsin, it costs 15. Most of the blue states, it's up around 20 cents a kilowatt hour. At $1 a gallon, that means I would buy 20 gallons in my car, which is considered a gas guzzler, because it only gets 20 miles to the gallon, and it has a 6.4 liter and 500 horsepower. I can travel with 20 gallons at 20 miles to a gallon, 400 miles. So a gas guzzler at $1 a gallon for gas is significantly cheaper to drive than an EV car. Let's pretend you have a car that gets 40 miles to a gallon. 20 bucks in fuel will take you 800 miles at $1 a gallon. Like I said, it needs to be up around $4 a gallon to make gas cars more expensive than EV cars. And that's the whole point behind raising gas. It's not about, what's going on in Ukraine or anything like that. It was intentional. They straight out said, we need to get gas prices up to like $4 a gallon or so to make EV cars cheaper than gas cars. This way people will buy EV cars for the whole Green Deal thing we're going to be doing. So that was the whole thing behind that. And again, a lot of people got into these luxury cars at 99 cents a gallon. Do you know how expensive it would be for me to drive my car right now if I actually had to leave my house to do my job? That would be insane. I mean, when I first got my car, it was like 20 bucks to fill it. Now it's like around 100, maybe a little bit more. That's just crazy. I couldn't imagine spending that kind of cash if I had to travel a distance to work. I locked out. I do my work from home, so I don't have to do a lot of traveling. Therefore, gas prices really don't affect me. So, as prices go up, what's going to happen are people are going to start cutting costs. They're going to start with like app services first. Something like Netflix, your YouTube Red, things like that. That's what's going to get cut out right away. Unless, of course, that's a part of their job. That shit's gone. If they can't pay for that, it's gone. The next thing that would be on the chopping block is credit cards. So you're going to start to see credit cards not getting paid. That's going to be gone. After credit cards are no longer getting paid, fast food will probably go next. It's just so convenient to stop and pay $5 to eat Then they'll go to the grocery store, spend the gas, go to the grocery store, come home, cook the food, or kilowatt hour to go to the grocery store. It's way cheaper just to swing into McDonald's and buy a Big Mac. $5 and you're full. You get a drink and everything. So after that, fast food would go. And now we're at the point where we're at right now where cars go. You've cut out all other expenses. What's next? Well, it would be cars. You stop paying for your car because the insurance is too expensive, gas is expensive. You'll just carpool to work. You're going to quit paying for your car, and that's what's happening right now. After that would become utilities, power and electric. That's what you would take out. Then finally, you would stop paying for your house and move back in with your parents. So, why is it a bubble? Yes, you know, some people can't pay for their car. It doesn't sound like a big deal. But why exactly does it make a bubble? Because it goes down a little something like this. It's not just the people getting their car repoed that's the problem. Now, remember, these loan companies that were giving out subprime loans and high-risk loans, they have an investors. If their investors start to see more money going out than money coming in, they're going to be like, hey, now we require this amount of a credit score for you to give a loan. That doesn't work. Now we require this amount. And they stop giving money out to subprime loans. So we got cars getting repoed and going back on the lot. And then we also have lenders no longer lending to buy the cars in the first place. So basically, I don't know exactly how quickly it'll happen or exactly how it will go down. I don't have a magic 8-ball. I can't see into the future. But it'll be like a switch. Practically overnight, all of a sudden, car dealers will be packed full of cars that they can't sell. The people aren't getting approved anymore. There's repos coming in left and right. Now they're stuck with all these used cars and they have no choice but to start dropping the price like crazy to try to get them off their lot, to at least try to recoup a little bit of losses or make enough money to keep the lights on in the place. It's a snowball. And it just keeps going. Like, it's bad. The value of a used car, if this keeps going in the direction it's going to, is going to tank. Like, literally, it'll be a buyer's market. You will name your price. I'll be like, I got $20,000. I want a Hellcat with this mileage. And they will find me one. That's just the way it works. Or I got, $30,000 and I want a Shelby GT 500. I want a 2020. It's got to have less than 10,000 miles and I want all leather interior. They will find me one because there's one sitting on a lot and it's been sitting there for multiple years, not being sold. No one can get approved for it. Nobody will get a loan for it. Insurance rates are too high. Again, it'll be a buyer's market. Like if you're looking at buying a luxury car right now, hold off just a little bit. Things are about to get really cheap. And it just keeps snowballing. The more that pop up on the lot, so on and so forth. Basically, we'll wind up with EV cars. The government will do some sort of special program where the government themselves will give out loans for EV cars to help push it, so they'll abandon their car. They can't sell it because they have too much negative equity. If they could sell their car, it wouldn't be a problem. We wouldn't be in a bubble right now. But because they owe more than the car is worth, it is not possible for them to sell. So once they get to the point where they can't make the loan payment, just walk away from it. Pull your license plates off it, leave it on the side of the road. Just abandon the car. And that's what's going to happen. And it's going to happen a lot. And it's just going to keep going. And all of a sudden, car value will be shit. It won't be worth nothing. And that's why I'm saying, hold off. Because if you are in the market to buy a car right now, just hold off for a little bit. You're about to save a lot of money. Because it's going to be a buyer's market. You will name your price. You'll say what you want and what you're willing to spend, and they will find the car for you. Because there is a car out there. Anyway, I'm sorry for all the doom and gloom. But once the Wall Street Journal reports on something, and once things go public, it's really bad. I've seen this coming, like I reported on in a couple of other videos. Basically, the credit companies were just like the little boy holding a finger in the dike. It wasn't if it was going to blow, it was when. Now, the government may wind up doing some sort of bailout that'll fix all this and it won't snowball too bad, but I highly doubt it. I think this one's going to be bad. I think this is going to be the worst car recession we have ever seen. It's just crazy. Like I said, a buyer's market. Hold on to your cash right now. Don't buy a car because they are seriously about to get cheap. Anyway, I apologize for the doom and gloom, but I just wanted to put this out there. And you need to be aware of it. You always need to be aware of financial stuff, especially when you're in the market to buy. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like to support the channel. Don't forget to subscribe.